cable. This is used to hook up to a TV or a computer monitor. Over here we have, this is a separate piece. You can order this off of Amazon. This is a DVI to HDMI adapter, just in case your computer monitor doesn't have HDMI. This will work good on it if it has the DVI adapter to it. This is the Raspberry Pi 2 case. This is where we're actually going to put the Raspberry Pi 2 in. So we're going to disassemble this right now, just so we can have it ready. Snaps right out. Alright, so here we have the actual Raspberry Pi 2. As we open it, it's in a little baggie. This is actually what your Raspberry Pi 2 will look like. So we'll just keep this in the bag for right now. Set it off to the side. Also comes with some instructions, just in case you need it. And it also comes with your 8GB micro SD card. Here we have the power source. It's pretty much just your plug-in into the wall. And here we have your heat sinks that they pretty much just stick onto the Raspberry Pi 2.
Yeah, and the microprocessor.
And here we have your Wi-Fi dongle. Looks like, and that'll just plug into your Raspberry Pi.
Into the USB ports.
Alright, so now we're going to assemble the Raspberry Pi 2. We're just going to pull it out of the anti-static bag. Just slide it right out. Try not to handle the board as much as you might short something out. So what we want to do is we want to put it on the bottom piece of the Raspberry Pi 2 case. And it has these little punches there that we're actually going to slide the Pi in, just like that. So we have it there. We're going to put the heat sinks on the microprocessor. Just take it out of the bag. And it has an adhesive tape on the bottom. What you just do is just pull a little film off. Make sure not to touch any wires or anything. Make sure nothing gets shorted out. And the bigger one goes on the big one. Just like so. So now what we're going to do is we're going to put the middle piece over the Raspberry Pi 2, and it should snap right in. You try to be gentle with it, you don't want to break anything. And it should snap right in like so. Now we just put the top piece over. Raspberry Pi 2 in its case, and the Wi-Fi dongle goes right into USB, just like that. And we have one more thing. We have the SD card that we need to insert. There it is. And it has this little bottom piece right here. And you want to point it up upwards just like that. And just slide it in until it clicks. And that is the assembly of the Raspberry Pi 2.
Alright, our Raspberry Pi 2 coming back here. Gonna go ahead and do a first boot up. Gonna need a few things from the kit. We already have our wireless dongle installed. We have our SD card, which houses our micro SD card, which houses our operating system. We need to do a few user interfaces, so we're gonna hook up a wired USB 2 keyboard and a wired USB 2 mouse into one of the 4 ports. Then we're going to take our power supply with our power cord, which is another micro USB like on any Android device. Hook that into our power supply block from line voltage. And we will leave that unplugged for now. We also have for our video our HDMI to DVI adapter and a HDMI cord. So we will go ahead, hook the HDMI cord to the adapter, and then we will take the HDMI other end, plug into the side of the Raspberry Pi. Here's where our power supply will plug into. This is an audio out for like headphones, and this is HDMI output. Go ahead before you hook your power up and hook your display up. That way when it boots up, you will auto adjust and auto focus for your display. Okay, all of our devices and wires are hooked up. Last thing to do, we're going to go ahead. There's no on-off function of the Raspberry Pi. As soon as you plug it in, it'll start the first boot up, so we'll go ahead and do that. Try to get the display when it starts going. It may take a minute. Okay, right now it's booting, first boot off the SD card. Recommended installation will be this Raspbian. This is firmware is Noobs, which is new out-of-box software provided for free by the Raspberry Pi company. We're going to go ahead and we're going to load with Raspbian, and this will be our default operating system. By doing that, we select the box and we hit enter. Or we hit install, I'm sorry. And be sure if you're using another SD card that didn't come with the kit, you have your pictures and everything else off of it, or because it's going to be formatted and you will lose all of that. Right now this is first boot up and installing the operating software. It looks like to be about 2.4 gigabytes. Alright, what we're showing right now is our install has just finished. We're extracting the file system right now, and momentarily you should see your desktop. It may boot into desktop, but it should boot into your options screen where you set everything. And right here, it looks like our OSs are installed successfully, so go ahead and click OK. And that will take you on to the next step. This is the initial boot up, what it will look like every time you power up your Raspberry Pi for typical usage. Alright, on the Raspberry Pi 2s, or in the Noob software, right here it says expand file system. File system is already fully expanded on the SD card when you're using the Noob software. Second thing down is to change the user password. We're not going to worry about that right now. Third one's mainly what we want to look at right now, which is enable boot to desktop, or boot to scratch, or boot into the command line terminal. We're going to go ahead, we're going to select this by hitting right arrow key and going select, hit enter. We want to boot into the desktop, log in as user, so select that option and hit enter. After selecting your boot to desktop, go ahead and arrow key over to finish, and that should load you, after a reboot, should load you straight to the desktop like you're used to. Alright, this is what your Raspberry Pi desktop looks like. It has a somewhat familiar start menu at the top left. Just for my own preference, I'm going to go ahead and move this dock to the bottom. You will right click, you'll hit panel settings, and when panel settings come up, you want the position at the bottom, and go ahead and close. Before you can update your Raspberry Pi, the operating system and software, you need to be connected to internet. Your Raspberry Pi has the option of direct hardline Ethernet, but for today's purposes, we're going to show you how to set up wireless.
Alright, so to hook up to the Wi-Fi, we're going to go down here to the menu bar. We're going to go to Preferences, and we're going to go to Wi-Fi Configuration. Now to set up the Wi-Fi network, we're going to go over here to scan for a Wi-Fi network. And in this case, we're going to use Alamo Guest. We're going to go ahead and click Scan. Double click it one more time, and this will bring up the internet ID, and you're just going to hit that. And you're just going to close this up. And we are now connected to the Wi-Fi.
Alright, next thing to do after you've hooked your Raspberry Pi to the wired or wireless internet is to open the terminal so you can upgrade and update your software and operating system. To do this, open your LX terminal. You'll see here, Pi at Raspberry Pi is your default Raspberry Pi name. First, we're going to go ahead and do an update. To do the update, you're going to type in sudo apt get update. After typing that, hit enter, and you'll see it begins to do an update. Okay, after the update's done, you'll see here right toward the bottom, it'll start a new script, which will be your Raspberry name, and ready for your next command that says done. That's when you know your update is done. Next, we'll go ahead and get an upgrade. So we're going to type sudo space sudo space apt get upgrade. And that's going to upgrade your operating system and any firmware, anything like that you need. And this will ask, toward the bottom, this is asking, do you want to continue adding additional 27.6 megabytes of additional space or additional software? Just hit Y for yes and enter. And this will take a while. Alright, after your upgrade and update, before you do anything else, we're going to go ahead and reboot. And just to show you from the command line, we're just going to type in sudo space reboot and hit enter. And that should reboot.